Welcome back, everyone. Now, something a little bit different today because, as you all know by now, every time I go back to bloody Gatwick Airport, I am put in a pen, held for a little while before being released to make my onward journey. Now, a very good friend of mine, most of you will know, Danny from Spain, or Danny in Spain, was recently held by the anti-terror unit at Gatwick. I think some people disbelieved that story. I think some people felt, not any one person in particular, but a few people felt that we'd somehow contrived this story as an excuse to move sideways from the movement. Well, I can assure you now that that isn't true. And if anybody disbelieves that, I'm sure that one day Danny himself might be prepared to release the actual paperwork that he was given. But the point of this video this morning is not to do with me or indeed with Danny. It's about a completely separate individual who I don't know, I've never met. I hope he doesn't mind me using his video. I'll credit him in the video description below. Have a little listen to this. I think you're going to find this very interesting, if not very concerning.
This is going to be a video that you're going to want to listen to the end. That's not just saying that for clicks. You will want to know what happened to me when I returned to the United Kingdom from France on the 6th of July. I got off the ferry at Portsmouth at about 6:15 in the morning after an overnight crossing to be told at passport control that there was a problem with my passport. Nothing wrong with my wife's passport or my two passengers.
Exactly what happened to myself.
I was told I would have to see a senior official of Border Fast. He turned up about 5 minutes later and asked me to follow him into a shed where he said, "Can you step out the car? I need to have a word." He took me round the corner and informed me that counter-terrorism police would be attending to ask me some questions.
And just before we go any further, every single day, especially this time of year, people are crossing from France on rubber dinghies. They arrive on our shores with the help of the RNLI. And as far as I'm aware, at least, none of them will go through this level of questioning. This gentleman, obviously British, returning home from France. But there you go.
He also said they would be around 20 minutes. 75 minutes later, the police turned up and let my two passengers go home. They arranged to get picked up by their son, and my wife was told she had to wait in the terminal while I was taken into a little room, and I was informed that I was being spoken to under Schedule 7 of the Counter-Terrorism Act. I was initially told I would be spoken to for about an hour, and after that I would be detained, and that would be reviewed every 2 hours. I was also informed at this stage that I was entitled to a solicitor. If it was during the first hour, it would be at my expense. If it was once I was detained, it would be on the government's expense. The paperwork for the 2-hour detention was already on the table, so I knew that that was going to go ahead. I was also told that I could have contact with my embassy if I wanted. Now, if you remember, I've told you this was 6:15 when I got off the ferry. This was probably about 7:30. There was no point. If anybody's got even half a brain, you know that no one's going to come for quite a few hours. So I thought, okay, we'll crack on. At this stage, I was informed that the let's call it a meeting, would not be recorded. They would take notes, which I found quite worrying, because at least if it's recorded, you can ask for a copy.
That is very, very worrying indeed. Why would that conversation not be recorded? Because that leaves anyone open to all sorts of nefarious potential comments being written down which didn't take place. Very concerning. All meetings, all interviews should be recorded, surely.
Anyway, at this stage, I was also told that if I didn't answer their questions, I would be arrested, and that would be a whole nother matter because it would extend everything. And of course, I was thinking of my wife, who was currently sat in the terminal not having a a didgeridoo on what had gone on.
This is exactly what happened with Danny. The only difference is that Danny didn't have his wife with him.
Obviously, I asked what I was being questioned for. They said it will become clear during the course of the next couple of hours, which it didn't. The questions were very, very bizarre, and I'm going to tell you about a couple that really stood out as being strange.
Again, that's what Danny said. The line of questioning was really quite bizarre. Let's carry on.
So I've asked them, why was I targeted coming back in the country? They wouldn't tell me. I said, was it about TikTok or was it about something else? Maybe something in my past? Again, they wouldn't answer. So basically, guys, be aware that under this Schedule 7, you've got no rights. Okay, you've got rights to a solicitor and your embassy. You've got no other rights. If you don't answer the questions, you're going to be spending an awful lot of time and you're going to be arrested, and all that gets really nasty.
Pure and utter, outright intimidation tactics.
As I had nothing to hide, I said, let's crack on. They do try and drag out that first hour so that they can then introduce the detainment. And of course, we get to that stage. Now, during the course of this very, very strange questioning, I got the impression that because I was a white male of a certain age, that they were trying to put me in a particular bracket. Now, I can't quite put my finger on it because the questions were really open.
Don't tell me you're a member of the far right.
But then they got to the point where they said to me, did you vote in the last election? And I said to them that that's a bit of a strange question because that's a private matter. As you know, we have the polling system where you go into a booth, nobody else can see what you've put on your cross, and apart from having to tell them that who you are when you arrive, nobody knows who did what and who voted for who. But with nothing to hide, I informed them that yes, I had.
Now, let's just stop it there for a moment. Have we really, unless this man is lying, and I don't believe that he's lying at all, can you believe that we have got to a position in the United Kingdom where counter-terrorism police are asking ordinary members of the public returning home from a holiday who they voted for, if they voted, and who they voted for? Can you even believe that we've got to that state in the United Kingdom? If that doesn't shock you, then nothing will.
Then this was the strange question. They didn't say, do you follow a political party or, whatever. They actually asked the question, did I vote reform? To which I said again, a very strange question, and I don't see how that fits in with any of your questioning unless you're trying to make me out as far right, which is what the government's called right-wing voters if you vote reform. I obviously gave them my answer. They then started talking about all sorts of other nonsense. Where had I been? What had I done? Could I name the museums I'd been to? Lots of very, very, very strange questions. And I kept checking, what's triggered this? What are you hoping to achieve? Cutting a long story short, the next 2 hours I was then detained again. Now, I found out later that at this stage my wife had put a bit of pressure on what they call the welfare officer that was meant to be checking on my welfare.
Again, that's what Danny had. Danny spoke about the welfare officer coming in, I think it was every hour, to check that he was okay, etc. Unfortunately, Danny's wife wasn't there to be putting any pressure on the welfare officer to get Danny released. But here's a question for everyone and for counter-terrorism police officers in general. I don't understand this, guys, because whilst I support everything, or not everything, but most things that you guys do, I can't understand what you think you're achieving by doing what you're doing, by intimidating ordinary members of the public, and by putting a wedge in between you, what you do, and the ordinary people of this country. Do you go home and tell your families how proud you are that you've pulled up a 50-odd-year-old British man coming back from holiday and asking him what museums he'd been to? Is that something to be proud of? Is that something that you want to tell your children about? I honestly don't understand. Maybe I'm missing something.
And hers, and said, if he's done, this is where the copper said to her, he's done nothing wrong, there's nothing to worry about. So she said, well, if he's done nothing wrong,
why is he there?
Why are you going to authorise?
If he's done nothing wrong, why is he there?
Another 2 hours. 7 minutes later, I was then released. My phone was seized. The phone I used to fly my drone was seized. I had 6 memory cards seized and my wife's memory stick with her music on. Strangely, they didn't take the memory card out of my drone or the memory card out of my Pocket 2, which is a video camera, for those that don't know. I had to let them take photographs of my tattoos. I had to let them have my fingerprints, and I had to give them 2 DNA samples. And at the end of it all, when I said again before I left, why was I stopped? What was all this about? I got told, you may never know. Now that was the 6th of July. Today I finally got my phone back, which was really annoying in a sense because it's got all my passwords on it. It had my banking on it. I couldn't do anything.
Same for Danny. When they take your phones with all your banking and your passwords, your life is on hold for the period whilst they've got your phones. Danny is a landlord. None of his tenants could get in touch with him. I mean, this is just pure and utter, outright, unquestionable intimidation tactics. And for what?
It's the 6th of July. For me, this is a massive overreach of this Schedule 7. And the reason I want to tell you about it is because I believe, and I've actually been in touch with Nigel Farage, and his message back to me was he believes this was a comment on social media. So if you're a patriot, if you're somebody that calls out this government, if you've got any opinions on anything, just be aware that you may one day get a knock on the door, or you may be pulled to one side and be treated like this. The first hour, although you're detained, they don't call it detention. Then they introduce the detention and you have no rights other than a solicitor or the embassy. So basically, we've got no rights. This, for me, is something that MP should be picking up on. Now, that all said, I support the job that they do if they are trying to stop genuine terrorism in this country.
Absolutely, I would agree with absolutely every word of that. But going by this gentleman's criteria for what they pulled in for, every single plane that comes in from probably 30, 40 countries around the world, every single passenger on those planes would have more reason to be pulled and questioned before being allowed into the UK. Why is it always people that look like me, that look like Danny, or that look like this gentleman? I mean, obviously they're pulling other people as well, but why are they pulling people like us? It really doesn't make any sense at all.
But I'm going to go through the normal steps of freedom of information request and other requests, and also asking for everything they've got on me to be deleted, because I don't know if you know, but their database is separate to the main police database, and they do actually tell you that your stuff will be deleted. So DNA, fingerprints, photographs, after a certain period of time. So listen up to what you're doing, guys. Tread very, very carefully, because I honestly believe they were trying to put words in my mouth during the interview, and you know, who knows. So you take care out there, and watch what you say. Oh, and by the way, let me know what you think, because I'm pretty much aware by having a look on X that lots of other people have gone through exactly what I went through and have come away not having a clue what it was all about.
Well, I'll tell you what it's all about. It's all about state intimidation, two-tier law, two-tier justice, two-tier judicial system, a two-tier government, in all honesty. There's no excuse for what's being done. And there's no excuse for, in my opinion, and this is a little bit contentious, I don't want to rattle any cages myself, but I go back to what I said a minute ago. These officers that are carrying out this intimidation, this state intimidation, really need to start taking a look in the mirror and saying to their bosses, this isn't what I signed up for. I didn't sign up to this job to abuse and to intimidate our own people. I signed up to this job to detect terrorists, genuine terrorists. And people like this, well, they ain't it. So let me know what you think, guys. I know I think I'm totally and utterly disgusted by the whole thing. More than anything, it's very worrying. I want to go home and see some of my grandchildren that I left at home. But honestly, do I fancy the same treatment as Danny and this gentleman? Absolutely not. But that's where we're at. And this seems to be happening more and more and more. This needs to be raised in the House. This needs to be raised by Nigel Farage and his Reform MPs. I'd like to see Rupert Lowe engaging with this issue and bringing it up in the House, because this intimidation of ordinary, decent, hard-working, honest British people needs to stop, and it needs to stop, and it needs to end now.